Hi guys, Kayong here. This is a quick update for this week. Right, my first thing I'd like to do is to apologize that we do not have our Facebook live at the start of this week. Right, I actually spent some time with the traders community in Singapore. Right, and that's why I don't have that time to do a live session on Monday. Okay, but nonetheless, no worries. What we're gonna do is we're gonna focus on the midweek update for the remaining for today, tomorrow, and Friday. Right, so as usual, if you've been with me for some time, you realize that on the right, this is my watch list. Right, I have already taken out a few since the start of the week. Right, so let's jump straight into it. The first one to look out for is euro dollar. Okay, in terms of daily perspective, nothing has changed. We are still overall expecting an upside. Okay, because you can see this pattern over here is forming like a diagonal, which means that it's a reversal pattern, potentially all the way back up to 1.1824, and that's where on the 1 hour time frame, the 1 hour perspective, that's where we want to look for a potential entry point. Okay, and as of now, what I'm seeing over here is that if this continue to form a corrective pattern, a flag, okay, we might get that upside after this pattern has been completed. Right, so keep a close watch for this week, the remaining of this week. Okay, the next one that I want to talk about is Australia dollar. Okay, this one was actually at the start of the week, we were monitoring it, and the overall direction don't change, just that right now it seems like based on this pattern over here that's developing, we might still get more downside first, which means that this is likely going to develop into a bigger diagonal, a bigger corrective pattern that looks perhaps like this. Okay, and then from here this low will be the key area to look for that buy setup to the upside. Okay, so if you look at most of the major pairs that has dollar in it, we are expecting the dollar to weaken. Right, so on New Zealand dollar, very similar. You can see today we have the RBNZ this morning. Right, it cut its rate. Right, so you saw a weakness in New Zealand, but the retracement almost came back to where it started. And what I'm seeing over here, this entire structure, okay, even though such volatility from the RBNZ, we are looking for upside. Okay, so this upside here is huge in terms of potential, because the final target you can potentially aim at is 0.6937 region, right? And right now price is just trading around close to 0.66, right? So it's a couple of hundred pips that we might be able to capitalize on nearing to the end of this week. Okay, because what I'm seeing over here is that this pattern uh, seems to be completed. Right, it might just take maybe a more couple of hours, maybe tonight or so, to form this small corrective pattern over here. And if it does, we do have a potential setup to take a buy trade to the upside. Right, Euro Aussie is a trade that I want to take towards the downside. Okay, if I go to the 4 hour, right, this 4 hour structure over here, okay, it's showing me that the overall directional bias is actually to the downside. Okay, so if I zoom out a little bit, you can see this is the pattern that I'm looking at. Okay, this one here, okay, the part here is there are a few possibility, but this is what I'm expecting: a move down to tap the previous low, and then maybe a break up, okay, towards this high, breaking it, and then that will give us one more move to the downside. Right, it doesn't need to come back up, which means that from here right now it can go down. All right, this impulse here, we are expecting one more to the downside. Right, and because of that, okay, which means that it can break from here, and then this forms a running flat. Because of that, right, and for that reason itself, I will be already starting to look for a trade to the downside. Right, and this trade here, potentially you can target, the first target is 1.5685. And what I'm seeing here, why I want to pay attention to this pair, is because right now what I'm seeing is that this seems to be forming a flag. Okay, and this flag is forming near that trend line structure, so that gives me that possibility of taking a short trade down towards 5685, right? So something that you want to pay close attention to on Euro Aussie. In terms of Euro New Zealand, okay, this one here, if I need to bring you to the daily time frame, okay, to give you a better and clearer perspective of this particular pair. Okay, if you have been following my sharing for some time, you know that Euro Kiwi we call for long, and we are expecting price to break above the 1.7203. Okay, the volatility for RBNZ this morning almost reached there. Okay, but that retracement down is pretty strong. Okay, in other words, this pattern might be completed as a running flat. Okay, or it can still continue higher to break that high. Okay, but nonetheless, after this pattern has complete, whether is this a running flat like this, okay, or an expanding flat, which means break the previous high, we are expecting an impulse that looks like this to follow through. Okay, so right now, based on the daily perspective, right, we are getting a very nice wick, which means that if we get a running flat, we might not hit that 7203 and start to drop, right? And for that reason, very similar to Euro Aussie, okay, same reason and rationale, that the pattern might have completed without hitting that top, right? And for that reason, what I want to look out for is a potential short. Okay, but as of now, Euro Kiwi is not showing us a very nice or clean setup. Okay, likely it might take maybe a few more days as it comes down over here and then it starts to form a correction. Okay, that itself will give us a valid trade to the downside. Okay, this might take some time, which means likely you would just continue to monitor this pair. Maybe at the end of this week on Friday or early next week, you might get that short trade starting. Okay, Pound Aussie, right? Very similar to actually the Euro Aussie and Euro Kiwi. Okay, we have been calling the Pound Aussie to the high, breaking this previous top. Okay, you can see price has broke it, and that retracement is sharp, which means that this move itself is complete, and right now we are looking for a downside. Okay, and the crucial part to pay attention to is also this structure. Okay, so ideally what you want to be is to be patient. You don't want to jump in right now because it can just consolidate over here, a bigger correction before move down, right? So what we want to do is just watch it, monitor it, because by end of this week or next week, you might get this correction along this trend line, and that gives us a valid trade to the downside. Okay, this one here you wouldn't want to miss. Okay, that means the short trade is not something you want to miss, because this can really go down, right? So you can see this is a structure that we are looking. This is an impulse, this is a correction. We are expecting one more impulse to break this low. Okay, so that trade is something you want to pay very close attention to. Right, next is on the watch list is New Zealand Canadian. Okay, New Zealand Canadian, we are expecting this as a corrective pattern for another move up. Alright, and for that reason, we are interested to look for that buy. Okay, and same thing for all New Zealand because of this morning RBNZ rate statement. Okay, the RBNZ decided to cut its rate, but if you look at price action, there's a dip, but then the retracement fully recover everything. Okay, so for this pair itself, the key level or structure to pay attention to is this is the immediate one. Will be to look at this structure, right? Of course, right now it's still very early to take a long trade, because ideally what you want to do is for price to actually start doing this corrective pattern along that structure, and then that gives us a very good valid trade to the upside. Okay, so again, this is a buy trade setup for you to pay very close attention to. Okay, the next two that's in my watch list is actually gold and silver. I seldom looked at them, but because of Monday, the community is looking at it, right? So this is something I also want to highlight. Okay, for gold, on the bigger picture, okay, at least on the 4-hour, you'll be able to see that we are looking for upside, right? And this upside over here, you can see this is actually a corrective pattern. right? Which aligns with the weakness of the dollar that we are expecting overall in the market, right? So this is a corrective pattern which we expect it to break all the way towards this high, okay? And this is the opportunity to capitalize on gold, right? But I wouldn't want to spend too much time on gold because silver is the one that you really want to pay closer attention compared to gold, simply because if you look at the position of this pattern, right, compared to gold, is that there's more upside potential. This is the only first target. It can even break this high, and if that clears, this is where you're gonna aim for it. Okay, so silver in terms of mid-term to long-term, the potential is really huge compared to gold. Okay, and for that reason itself, I would want to focus on silver itself. Okay, while the chart is loading, this is what I'm seeing in silver. Okay, this is a correction that's happening across the wedge. So I'm expecting that, right, once this completed, we get a buy trade to the upside towards 15.61.